You meet someone new. The chemistry is immediate. They're a little mysterious, a little distant, but that only makes you want them more. You tell yourself they're just guarded, that your patience will melt their walls. 6 months later, you're emotionally exhausted, confused about where you stand, and somehow apologizing for needing clarity. Or maybe it's a friendship. You've known them for years. Every time you need support, they're busy, distant, vaguely dismissive. But when they need you, you drop everything. You tell yourself this is just how they are, that real friendship accepts people as they come. You never ask yourself why you're always the one accepting. Or at work, your boss recognizes your talent, promises advancement, creates just enough hope to keep you striving. But the promotion never comes. The recognition stays verbal, never material. You tell yourself you're being developed, that patience pays off, that good things come to those who wait, while your colleagues advance around you. Here's the question that will make you uncomfortable. What if you're not unlucky? What if you're not attracting the wrong people? What if you're actively, though unconsciously, seeking them out? You've been telling yourself a lie. The lie is that you're open, loving, willing to see the best in people, that your problem is generosity in a selfish world, that you just haven't found someone who appreciates what you offer. The truth is sharper. You don't attract emotionally unavailable people because you're too giving. You attract them because unavailable feels safe. Available feels like a trap. And until you understand why your nervous system confuses distance with security, you will keep building homes in houses with locked doors. In the next 18 minutes, you will understand exactly why your brain equates emotional unavailability with safety, why the advice you've been given keeps failing, and more importantly, how to break the cycle without becoming cold or closed off. But first, let me tell you about someone who sat exactly where you are now. Sarah was 34 when she came to see me. Executive at a tech company, ran marathons, had a circle of friends who called her the therapist because she was always there for them. From the outside, she had built the life everyone wants. From the inside, she was starving. She sat in my office and said something I've heard 100 times, but never with less awareness. I don't understand it. I'm successful everywhere except relationships. I keep meeting these men who seem incredible at first, intelligent, ambitious, but then they just can't show up. And I keep thinking, if I just explain myself better, if I'm more patient, if I don't push too hard. She trailed off. I waited. Then she said the real thing. It's like I'm always auditioning, and if I perform well enough, eventually they'll choose me. There it was. The pattern. Sarah wasn't dating men who couldn't commit. She was dating men whose unavailability gave her something to do, a problem to solve, a performance to give, a reason to try harder that wasn't, I am fundamentally unlovable as I am. A 2019 study from the University of Toronto found something disturbing. Researchers followed adults with anxious attachment patterns and discovered they experienced more physiological stress in relationships with secure, available partners than with distant, inconsistent ones. Their cortisol levels were actually lower when their partners were pulling away. Their bodies had learned to associate anxiety with intimacy and calm with uncertainty. This is where most people get it wrong. They think the pattern is about the other person, about bad luck, or modern dating, or men these days, or commitment phobes. They don't see that their nervous system is running the show. That childhood experiences created a blueprint where love equals labor, where connection must be earned, where someone's full presence feels overwhelming because it leaves no place to hide. Sarah's father was alcoholic. Not violent, not absent in the obvious ways, present but unpredictable, sometimes warm, sometimes distant, always depending on whether he'd been drinking. She learned to read him, to adjust herself, to become whatever he needed in each moment to stay reachable. She became an expert at earning love that should have been free. And her adult relationships feel wrong when they don't require the same effort. Here's the revelation that changes everything. You're not attracted to emotionally unavailable people because you have bad taste. You're attracted to them because their unavailability lets you maintain the only identity you know, the one who tries, the one who understands, the one who doesn't need too much. When someone is fully present, fully choosing you, fully available, you face a terrifying question. Who are you when there's nothing to fix, no one to convince, no distance to bridge? Common advice fails because it addresses symptoms. Set boundaries. Love yourself. Use affirmations. But your nervous system doesn't speak the language of self-love. It speaks the language of pattern and prediction. You can tell yourself you deserve better 1,000 times, but your body will still feel bored or anxious or vaguely empty when someone treats you well consistently. Because well doesn't match the familiar frequency of hard. The real mechanism is biological, not moral. Your brain formed its attachment template in early experiences of care. If love came unpredictably, your nervous system wired itself for vigilance, for the dopamine hit of intermittent reinforcement. The text that finally arrives after 3 days of silence feels more rewarding than the message that comes reliably every morning. Not because you're broken, because your reward system was calibrated to scarcity. Sarah dated a man for 8 months who saw her every 2 weeks, never introduced her to friends, and went silent whenever she asked about the future. When she finally ended it, she met someone different. He texted daily, planned dates in advance, said directly that he wanted a relationship, and Sarah felt suffocated, bored, like something was missing. She came to me convinced she just wasn't attracted to nice guys, that chemistry couldn't be forced. She didn't yet understand that chemistry, for her, required the activation of her survival system, the slight anxiety, the uncertainty, the sense that she had to work for it. Real intimacy felt flat because it didn't trigger the familiar hormonal cocktail of pursuit and hope. This is why you will implement 3 specific techniques, not to change who you are, but to retrain what feels safe. The first is the pause test. When you feel intense chemistry with someone new, when that magnetic pull happens immediately, you will pause. Not reject them, just pause. For 48 hours, you will notice what specifically creates the attraction. Is it their presence or their mystery, their warmth or their elusiveness? You will write down 3 observations about their behavior that don't involve how they make you feel. Concrete actions, frequency of contact, consistency of follow-through. You're not looking for perfection. You're looking for whether your attraction survives the absence of anxiety. The second technique is the cost audit. Once a week, you will review your closest relationships and ask one question. What is this costing me to maintain? Not financially, emotionally. In sleep, lost wondering what they meant. In energy spent interpreting mixed signals. In opportunities declined because you're waiting for someone to choose you. You will total these costs without judgment. Just numbers. Then you will ask, if a friend described paying this price, what would I tell them? The third is the safety experiment. You will identify one person in your life who is consistently available. Maybe a friend you've kept at arm's length because they're too much or too intense. Maybe a colleague who shows genuine interest in your well-being. For 2 weeks, you will accept their availability without deflecting. When they offer help, you'll say yes. When they ask how you are, you'll answer honestly. You will observe your body's response, the urge to pull back, the discomfort with ease. You will not act on these urges. You will simply notice them and stay. You might think this sounds good in theory, but that your situation is different. That the person you're thinking of right now really is special, really is worth the wait, really will change when they see how patient you are. Pawn. I want you to hear how that sounds. You've been patient. They've seen it. Nothing changed. The pattern isn't information about their potential. It's information about their present. And your present is the only place you can live. And if you only did this for 7 days, just the pause test alone, you would start to see something that will unsettle you. How much of what you've called chemistry was actually anxiety? How many of your deep connections were actually trauma bonds? How peaceful, how strangely empty a steady presence feels when you're not performing for it. Here's how this looks in practice. You're on a dating app. You match with someone who responds immediately, asks direct questions, suggests specific plans. Your first instinct is that they're too eager, moving too fast, probably desperate. You feel the familiar pull towards someone else whose profile is mysterious, whose messages are sporadic, who keeps you guessing. This time, you apply the pause test. You notice the judgment you're making about the available person. You ask yourself, what evidence do I have that eagerness equals desperation? Or am I simply uncomfortable with clarity because it doesn't activate my pursuit system? You agree to one date with the person who made concrete plans. Just one. During the date, you notice every time you feel bored, every time you look for reasons they're not right, every time you compare them unfavorably to someone more elusive. You don't act on these observations. You just witness them. Afterward, you run the cost audit on your recent dating history. You calculate hours spent analyzing unclear messages, nights lost to wondering where things stand, emotional energy invested in people who gave you crumbs and called it a feast. The number shocks you, not because you didn't know, but because you never added it up. Then you reach out to that friend, the one who's always been there, who you've kept at a careful distance because their availability felt almost embarrassing. You accept their invitation to dinner. When they ask about your life, you don't perform competence. You say you've been struggling. You watch their face. They don't pull back. They lean in. Something in your chest loosens, just slightly. But wait, there's a trap here you must avoid. The trap of becoming the unavailable one, of swinging from anxious pursuit to avoidant withdrawal, of deciding that since availability hurt you, you'll never be fully present again. This isn't the goal. The goal is secure attachment, choosing people who choose you back, being available without being desperate, receiving without performing. Some of you are realizing something right now about that person you keep thinking about, the one who comes to mind when I describe distance, inconsistency, the sense of having to try harder. You're seeing a pattern you didn't name before, the way you always had one foot out the door with people who actually wanted you and both feet in with people who didn't, the way you called it chemistry when it was actually activation, the way you mistook anxiety for love because love, in your original language, was anxious. I want you to feel the difference between that old pattern, where you were always auditioning, always adjusting, always waiting to be chosen. And this new possibility, where someone shows up consistently, where you don't have to interpret silence, where your only job is to be present and see if you actually like them back. It feels strange, doesn't it? Almost boring. That boredom is your nervous system recalibrating. Stay with it. You are not here because you're broken. You're here because you adapted brilliantly to circumstances that required you to become hypervigilant, to earn connection, to translate love into a language of labor. That adaptation kept you safe. It also kept you small. The work now isn't to become someone new. It's to recognize that the environment has changed. You're not a child anymore. You don't have to perform for basic care. You can want things directly. You can receive without debt. The sentence you need to remember 1 year from now is this: availability is not a red flag. Ease is not a trap. And the person who makes you feel calm is not boring. They're just not activating your survival system, which is the whole point. Before you go, I want to ask you something specific. Think of the last person you tried to convince to choose you, the one you explained yourself to, over and over, thinking if you just found the right words. What would you have done with all that energy if you had known, really known, that you were already enough without their recognition? If this question hit somewhere tender, if you saw yourself in Sarah's story or in the techniques I described, that's worth recognizing. The algorithm notices when you engage, but more importantly, you notice when something matters. Hit the like button if this spoke to something you've never quite named before. And subscribe, because next week we're going deeper. We're talking about why saying no feels physically impossible for some people, and the specific neurological rewiring that makes it easier. You don't want to miss it.